Thank you for coming out tonight. I see a lot of familiar faces in the audience, and it means a lot to me that you took the time to come and listen to my story. I have to admit that when Kim first approached me on the subject of single, divorced, or married, I had a lump in my throat. When she told me that the date was September 20th, I knew that God was calling me to be transparent, to lay it all out there, and that ultimately my shame would be a source of healing for anyone who is listening. So before I jump into my story, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I was born in the 70s on the small island of Jamaica. Yes, I know my accent is a dead giveaway. While I didn't have any siblings, I had a great bunch of cousins. One in particular I'd like to focus on, my cousin Nikki. She was very driven. She was an overachiever. She taught me the value of hard work and focus. And when I was around her, I felt that there was nothing that I couldn't achieve. I took my SATs in the 10th grade. I graduated high school in 11th grade. And at the ripe old age of 16, I started my first semester in college in the US. Quite a big leap for this island girl, but I was always adventurous and had a free spirit. I had a 4-year plan, and I nailed it. Graduated at 20, got the first job, had my first apartment, and it felt great. I felt like I was on top of the world. The only thing that was left was finding love and starting a family. At that point, there was a guy that I hung out with more than the others from my young adult group at church. He was kind, he was smart, and really savvy in the ways of spirituality, theology. Whenever I was around him, I felt like my faith was growing by leaps and bounds. It was almost euphoric. I felt my faith life grow in spades. So I thought maybe I should explore this a little deeper. So we started dating. And after 3 years, we got married on September 20th, 19 years ago to this day. Now, they say the first year of marriage is truly the hardest, and they would be correct. You see, in the Bible, in Genesis 2:24, it says, "For this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined with his wife, and the two shall become one flesh." Unfortunately, this was not my experience. The best way that I can describe those early years was that I never felt like I could be my authentic self. Every character trait that made me uniquely me was regarded with a little bit of disdain. In the middle years, I try to put my lofty ambitions and dreams on a shelf. I know that it can be a little hard being married to an overachiever, so I try to tamp things back a little. I decided, let me just give it a year and chill, which is very hard for me. For those of you who know me, I am not that person. But I wanted to really work on my marriage, and hopefully this was going to make things better. So I did this for about a year. And then when I came to assess the situation, I realized there was really no impact. And it made me anxious and bitter. And a new word started to creep into my life: shame. Shame was in full effect. And the only way that I could cope with it was to be excellent in every other area of my life. I used perfection as a mask for my shame. So what did I do? I became the perfect employee, the perfect Sunday school teacher, the perfect friend. And the bits of self-esteem that I gained in these areas helped make it a little tolerable. Of course, it's not like we didn't try to work on our marriage. We went to those family life marriage conferences. For those of you who know, they're really great. They give you great strategies for working on things. But inevitably, after we returned home, the drive to be consistent fizzled out, and we went back into that same toxic cycle. I know you're probably thinking, gosh, that doesn't sound that bad. And believe me, I struggled with those thoughts too. But when you consistently hope for things that don't happen, it starts to mess with your head. In Proverbs 13:12, it says, "Hope deferred makes the heart sick." And heart sick was the only way that I could describe my marriage. I was so paralyzed to do anything because of fear of judgment and the overwhelming shame that overtook me. I felt like I was a failure. I was also mad at God because I felt that he could have done a little bit more to help. I was doing everything I could to make this work. And deep down, I knew that there was something I had to do to save myself and to save my flagging faith. So there are times in life when you can clearly point to as a turning point. And mine, I know the day and the hour. March 12, 2002 at 2 a.m. I got a call, and we know nothing good ever comes from a 2 a.m. call. The call basically told me that my precious cousin Nikki was in a terrible car accident on I-95 in South Florida. Her 3-year-old son was ejected and killed on impact, and she was being wheeled into the OR for potential life-saving surgery. I went numb, but I remember clearly bargaining with God, please take me instead of her. I really don't want her to go. And I felt that she was a mom, she's a great wife, she had a great marriage, and in my eyes, I was such a failure, I didn't think I'd be missed. But God, in his ultimate wisdom, chose to take my cousin. And something inside me broke. I knew that I had to take action. The separation and divorce itself was not as traumatic as I envisioned because I had the support of amazing work friends and a really good therapist who helped me breathe through the chaos. The part that really saddened me was the response from my Christian friends. The shock I expected. You know, God hates divorce, we know this, but the judgment hit me like a ton of bricks. Friends from over a decade chose to say things like, well, God's gonna take his hand of blessing away from you. One particular incident stands out in my mind. I got an email from a friend, been a friend for about 12 years. I thought, oh, so great to hear from you. I opened up the email and there was just a single scripture, Proverbs 14:1, and I'll read it for you. The wise woman builds her house, but the foolish woman tears it down with her own hands. Someone that I called a friend for over a decade went straight to scripture and used it to wound me. I ran faster than the prodigal son, away from church, away from scripture, away from anything remotely spiritual. I was wounded, I was in a funk, and I was gonna stay there for as long as I needed. So about a year into my funk, or sabbatical as I like to call it, the mom of another old friend of mine passed away. I reached out to her to let her know I was thinking about her, and we chatted on the phone for a little bit. And when we hung up, I collapsed into a puddle of tears on my kitchen floor. You see, right before she hung up, she told me, Deb, there is nothing that you could ever do to make God stop loving you. Thank you so much, Maritza. You have no idea how your words have impacted my life. At that point, I felt that God was calling me back for a reason. So how did my journey continue? Well, it started out a little shaky because I let go of all my plans to control my future. I took comfort in the scripture from Joel, where it says, I will give you back what you lost to the swarming locust. And true to his word, God did restore those lost years of my 20s. I found love again with an amazing man who's sitting right here to support me as he has for the past 13 years. I am able to be my authentic self, which is such a gift that I do not take for granted. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary and have 2 wonderful children. My faith life is a work in progress, but I'm even more confident now than ever in Jeremiah 8:28, where it says, and we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good for those who are called according to his purpose. I learned over the years that scriptures are indeed a powerful tool. They can be used to wound, and they can be used to bring healing. They can be used to comfort, or they can set someone on a path of despair. As believers, we're called to be light bearers, hope bringers, safe spaces. You never know who will need a timely word from you. Use your power wisely. I also learned that no matter how long it takes, God's promises are faithful, and he does allow for U-turns. So wherever you are in your life right now, I would like to leave you with a scripture from Romans 8:38, because it meant so much to me at a time of faith diminishing. I am convinced that nothing can ever separate us from the love of God, neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither our worries or fears, not even the powers of hell. Thank you for your time.